Hello there. My name is Jeremy Bilson, and today I have the privilege of being able to share to you some strategies and some policies that are used in Indigenous education today. I'll be specifically referring to policies used by a Christian college called Marara Christian College, and that is a school that is up in Darwin, and it has around a third of the school population actually being Indigenous students. So this is why I chose this school to actually interview a teacher. I interviewed a teacher called Terza McKee, and she was a teacher, a secondary school science teacher, who teaches a lot of Indigenous students and had a lot of lot of great things to say. So I'm going to go into some of these strategies now that we're actually able to learn from, and I have personally learnt from and believe I can use. But before that, I just want to say a quote that really resonates with me is from the Department of Education. It says that the Department of Education is committed to improving the educational outcomes and well-being of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students so that they excel and achieve in every aspect of their education. And I believe that this is so great that our government is able to pour into schools, that then pour into students, that it is really important that that Indigenous students get the most opportunities that they can in not only education but in developing as human beings and overall in their lives. So I just thought that was really encouraging and worth talking about. So I'm going to focus now on just the fact that when I was talking to Terza, she focused so much on the cultural learning and understanding of mutual respect to students. Students really connect with you if you actually want to understand their culture and want to understand their background and where they're from. And that goes such a long way in teaching Indigenous students. Not only is it good to actually understand and want to listen to these students, but it is really good to be able to use teaching strategies that they relate to. Some of this does include Dreamtime stories, as Aboriginal students learn a lot from stories, as we might know, as in the past, Indigenous students have often mainly learned just from Dreamtime stories. But we're able to now actually use any stories in any subject to actually convey meaning and communicate an idea. This can even be a Bible story as well. So another strategy that resonated with me, that was new to me when I was interviewing Terza, was that Aboriginal students generally like to watch others do a task before they do it themselves. They actually like those simple steps to digest just a little bit at a time, and part of this is that they don't actually like failure, probably more than white Australian students. They want to make sure that when they do something, they get it right. And so a great thing to actually do when teaching Indigenous students is just take things little bit by little bit. So I think that is really important. Terza also commented on the importance of understanding our recent history with Indigenous students. And she actually stated, the history of white people is shameful and we must own that. And I really resonated with that. She actually continued then discussing how as white Australians, we must realise how horrible things, how horrible the things that Europeans did, and how many lives were destroyed in the process. It's really important to be sorry and to really own that as white Australians, but say, hey, we're looking forward to a future and doing it well with you. So that's with our Indigenous students, but also Indigenous families, as some of them still might hold on to past hurts, and not only past hurts of white Australians, but as Christians as well, of what happened in the lost generation. And and just as we're trying to encourage these students to have a good education, some families in Indigenous circles have not had this education or have not held education as a high regard. So sometimes it takes that bit of effort to actually help encourage them. There's also a barrier in Indigenous education where a lot of Indigenous students unfortunately have lower literacy and numeracy levels, and sometimes the literacy levels is just because it is their third or fourth language, which is incredible. I only speak one language, and that's enough for me. But sometimes special strategies and policies need to be put in place, such as students being assessed in their own language and then being interpreted, or maybe they can actually do assessments, orally and use their vocals, things like that. Terzel was actually saying that in this Christian college, which I have been investigating in, they actually sometimes have students talk in their own language in their class, because it actually helps the students in peer learning and assisting one another with their learning. And I thought that was really incredible as well. So I was actually really pleasantly surprised by how Marara Christian College provides a healthy and wealthy, productive educational environment for all students, including Indigenous students. And I look forward to implementing some of these strategies that they may use in my own teaching in the future within Indigenous education. So thank you for listening to this presentation.